Okay, so moving on to the third pillar. Now that you've got your message honed and you have some platform skills, you want to find a broader audience to influence and to demonstrate you as a professional, as subject matter expert, and hopefully generate some referrals or maybe even some direct business. This brings us to the importance of writing. Now, it's interesting that recently I've come to understand from people that a lot of folks have as big an aversion to writing either short articles or blog posts as they do to getting up in front of the public. It's a surprise to me, but I guess it's a real issue. And it's something that I spent a lot of time coaching and counseling my consultants and my associates on, because it is an important part of an executive skill set today, especially if you want to rise in an organization. More importantly, if you want to get into the ranks of independent consulting or freelancing. This is a way to dramatically expand your exposure. So whereas you might get in front of 40 or 50 or even 100 people when you're on a stage delivering an address to a group or a meeting, by writing articles, and especially being consistent about writing articles or blog posts, you can reach thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, possibly even millions of people. Now, like any skill, it takes time, it takes practice, and it's good to have a coach or a mentor to help you with your writing abilities. You know, most of us have learned pretty well how to write in a business environment. And our bosses from time to time have coached us as to how to phrase things better or to be more precise or even pithy. So now if you're going to produce a blog or write an article, not only do you have to be accurate, concise, and pithy, you have to be interesting. So writing a blog, in many cases, is more about telling a story with a learning experience attached to it. My history in coming to blogging was kind of interesting, as I was recruited by my college alumni association to write an article once a quarter for their alumni magazine. I was on the board of directors for the Alumni Association at the time. They all knew that I was an executive recruiter. And the director of the Alumni Association came to me and said, "Hey, Jim, you're an executive recruiter, right?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, you must know something about careers and how people need to manage their careers. And you might be good at giving advice in that area." And I said, "Yes, that's true. I think so." And then he said, "Well, you might be interested in writing an article for our quarterly magazine." He said, "Don't worry, it's not a big deal. You don't have to write that many words. We have a whole communications department under the Alumni Association. We've got an editor that we can assign to you, and they can help you with all the details of writing a good blog post or an article in this case." So I jumped on the idea. And what did I have to lose, really? So that was well over 10 years ago. And I learned the fundamentals of writing an interesting but short post that were read literally by tens of thousands of people that were reading our alumni magazine. And it became, the more I did it, the easier it became. And frankly, the easier it became, the more I wrote. One day, the director of the Alumni Association came to me and said, "You know, those folks over in the placement department for the university, have decided that they really ought to be in control of writing that article. I mean, they are the placement office after all. And that was hard to argue with. So I said, sure, thanks. I understand. I appreciate the fact that, you worked with me all these years and I got some good training and development. And I have no problem stepping aside and letting the placement department write the article going forward. And later on, as I thought about it, I said, well, I've learned these skills. I've learned the discipline. I am comfortable in, just picking a topic and working on it. Why should I stop now? So I continue to write a blog post and put it on my website for my executive search practice. So now, over 10 years later, I've developed a pretty solid little habit of writing a blog post, and I've been working to help other people do the same thing. But the important thing about writing a blog post and then promoting that blog is that now, instead of influencing 20, 30, 40, or even 100 people at one sitting, I'm influencing that many plus maybe 2 or 3 times as much every day. So if I run my blog post for a week, I have every expectation of, thousands of people reading that article and clicking on my website and learning more about me and my capabilities. Now that is true leverage. And the more you write, the better you get. And the more you write in a storybook fashion, after all, people don't like to be lectured to. They like to hear stories. They like to be intrigued. You've got to make it interesting for them. But over time and a little bit of practice, you'll develop the skills to write something that is not only of value to the reader, but also interesting to read. So that's the third and final pillar of success. And as I said before, this is what your competition is doing. If you're not out there hitting on all 3 of these fundamental factors for success, then you're going to be passed up for career promotions, for great jobs, for getting a good consulting gig, or being recognized for your capabilities as a professional. So sort of to recap, these 3 pillars of success are all about building a team. When I was younger, there were a lot of kids, young people that followed different rock and roll bands. We called them groupies. Well, they were fans. They weren't necessarily friends of the band, but they were big supporters, and they were very helpful in promoting, the music for the band. Today, everybody's looking for followers. Followers are people that enjoy listening to you, hearing your point of view, and reading articles about things that are important to you that you think should be of interest to them. So call them groupies, call them followers. They're all your team. And your team is essentially there as a business development group to help you achieve greater success. So to recap, the fundamental skill that you need to develop, you may already have developed, is just basic networking. Understanding that it's not about you, at least initially, it's about demonstrating your interest in the other person. Draw them out, ask questions, get them talking about themselves, show interest in that person by following up with other questions until they're ready to ask you to tell them about you. And at that point, you've established a connection. From learning the basics of the one-on-one networking process, move on to participate in one or more networking groups. And in this case, you can expand your network, but also demonstrate to those people that you have significant leadership skills and professional skills that add credibility to your knowledge base. So that's, essentially that's working with somebody. They're working with you, and they will be much more likely to provide you with referrals and introduce you to people that can help build on your success. From that basic skill set, networking both individually and in groups, move on to public speaking opportunities. For that matter, you can speak to your group, get up in front of them and demonstrate your platform skills, provide them with information, practice a given presentation, and then ask those folks to recommend people they might know that are looking for speakers for their group. By moving from talking to people one-on-one to public speaking, you're providing leverage, expanding your message about your skill set, your capabilities, your professionalism, and why people should consider you for that next great job or for that next great consulting gig. And then finally, to reach a far broader audience, consider writing articles and blogging. Now, there are a lot more platforms to promote your articles than ever before. If you're on LinkedIn, then you can post your article right on LinkedIn and get that exposed to your entire network, and hopefully those folks will pass your article or forward your article to people in their network. If you're involved in Facebook or Twitter or some of the other social media platforms, then you can get further exposure by placing your article in one of those mediums. And if you feel uncomfortable writing, find somebody that can coach you through it. There's a lot of people out there with backgrounds in writing that would be happy to help you. And for that matter, there's a lot of online resources. One that I like to use is Grammarly, that helps ensure that not only is my spelling and punctuation correct, but it also makes sure that my grammar is right and that I'm using the most viable sentence structure to get my point across. But once you're comfortable with writing an article and publishing it on social media, once you develop that habit, it becomes easier and easier and easier, and your writing will become better and better and better. And then you've got an asset that will really help generate business, referrals, and broaden your network. So that is essentially my message to you today. The 3 pillars of success are networking, individually and as a group, moving on to public speaking opportunities, and then taking those skills and putting it on a much broader platform by writing articles or blog posts that can reach thousands, who knows, maybe millions of people, that can demonstrate your capabilities and why they should consider you the next time they look for somebody to help them solve a problem.